New real estate investors and wholesalers often struggle to find deals from cold calling. They often think that they will be good at it immediately, but the truth is, it is unreasonable for anyone to believe that they are going to be good at cold calling without first putting in the work. In today's video, I am going to help you put in the work by giving you my top 3 cold calling tips. If you are new to the channel, my name is Justin Urong. I'm a real estate investor and entrepreneur here in Las Vegas. I have made hundreds of videos teaching people about real estate, and the goal of this channel is to help you grow your money and mindset. Also, if you want to see more personal content, follow me on Instagram at Justin Urong. Tip number 1, always keep in mind the purpose of the phone call. What I have found after speaking to a lot of new wholesalers and a lot of new real estate investors, I've discovered that a lot of people get so caught up in the details and following a script word for word exactly that they forget why they're calling in the first place. The purpose of every cold call is to find a motivated seller. And once you understand the purpose of these cold calls that you plan to make, you will start to ask better questions because you understand why you are calling. My biggest piece of advice for you here is to not get caught up in the details, because usually when we are so caught up in the details, we don't take as much action as we should. It is so easy to start overanalyzing or overthinking that you're not making as many cold calls as you should in the first place. Since the goal is to find a motivated seller, as you are speaking to these homeowners, understand that there are 4 main things that you need to know to find out if they are really a motivated seller. Number 1, and it's the most obvious one, but figure out if the homeowner even wants to sell their home. Not every homeowner that you speak to is an actual seller, because what a seller is someone who sells their home. So a lot of these people that you're going to be speaking to don't even want to sell. And if you find out that someone does not want to sell their home, you want to move on to the next person as soon as humanly possible, because you don't want to waste your time speaking to someone if they don't even want to sell their home in the first place. So one of the first questions that you should ask, or one of the first statements that you should make, should be related to if they want to sell their home or not. Number 2, you want to figure out why they want to sell. If you do not understand why the homeowner would want to sell, you do not understand them. And if you do not understand them, you do not understand their pain. And you have to understand their pain if you want to get a good deal. In my experience when speaking to sellers directly, I've never been able to get a deal without first understanding their pain. Once I understand the seller's pain and understand the problems that they have, that's when I can start thinking of how to solve those problems. Number 3, you want to figure out what price they want to sell their home at. This one is pretty obvious, but a lot of people still don't try to figure out what price the seller wants to sell their home at. I always try to get the price out of the seller first, because typically in negotiations, the person who gives up their number first usually loses the negotiation. And I'm using the term loses very lightly, because if you're negotiating correctly, everyone should win. No one should lose, but you get what I mean. The 4th thing that you need to know to find out if you're talking to a motivated seller is their timeline. When are they looking to sell, or when do they need to sell the home by? You never want to assume the time frame a seller wants to sell their home. You as a real estate investor may immediately start to tell a seller that you can close very quickly, 5 days and 10 days, whatever the case is. But if a seller does not want a fast close, then by you saying that, you immediately become a less attractive offer. I have had multiple sellers who wanted longer escrow periods to sell their homes for multiple reasons. So never assume the desired time frame of a seller unless you are assuming out loud. And this is what I mean by assuming out loud. Every person out there likes to be correct. And when you intentionally assume something out loud about someone else, they want to correct you. So if you wanted to get an exact time frame of when a seller wanted to sell their home, you could do something like this. And let's just say, for the sake of an example, it's January right now. So Mr. Seller, you're trying to get this sold by 4th of July? Notice what I just said right there. I assumed to the seller out loud what I thought his time frame was. All I really did was pick a holiday, maybe 6 months out, to see when the seller really wanted to sell. Because if that seller did not actually want to get the home sold by July, 6-7 months out, then they're gonna correct me. They will tell me, no, that's way too long. I need to get this sold in 2 weeks. I promise you, this actually works. People love to be right, and they will correct you if you assume out loud. So now you know the most important things that you need to find out to determine if you are speaking to a motivated seller. You need to know the seller's preferred price, their motivation, and their timeline. Everything else is not as important. And of course, there are some other important things that you might want to know. Maybe you want to find out more about the condition of the home, or maybe you even want to find out if there are any other decision makers. And although these are very important things, the most important things are price, motivation, timeline. My second cold calling tip is to shut your mouth. The best cold calling conversations are the ones where the seller is speaking 90% of the time and you are speaking 10% of the time, asking very open-ended questions. This is definitely something that I personally have struggled with at the beginning. I often found myself over-explaining some things to these homeowners when I really should have just been asking questions about them to try to figure out their price, their motivation, and their timeline. So as you speak to these homeowners, just be aware of how much you're talking versus how much they're talking. And if you're talking more than the seller, then you're doing it wrong. Also, don't give answers to questions that were never asked. To give an example for this, let's say you're on a cold call and the homeowner says something like, yeah, I might consider selling, depends. Don't immediately start telling him what you do and that you can pay for all the closing costs and make it super easy for them. They never asked that question. All you want to do if they say something like, maybe, or I might, just ask clarifying questions of what they meant. So if they said maybe, you could say something like, when you say maybe, what do you mean by that? Because a maybe is very vague. You are just trying to figure out if they want to sell, why they want to sell, what their timeline is. And if a homeowner ever gives you a vague response, just ask them about it. Ask for clarifying information so that you can understand what they meant. But don't give answers to questions that they never asked. My third cold calling tip is that whatever script you use is meant to be a guide. If you are using a script, and I suggest that you do just to get comfortable speaking, but don't sound robotic. Your job is not to read word for word exactly what the script says. Your job is to have a conversation that flows and to try to figure out if you are talking to a motivated seller and get them to trust you enough to reveal more information as to whether or not they're a motivated seller or not. I have seen this robotic kind of speaking from my interns and my virtual assistants in the past. And of course, it's gonna take time to get better at the script and speaking so that it does flow, but get comfortable enough with the script that you have by role playing with yourself so that you can speak and have a conversation that flows. The quality of the conversation that you have with the seller is not determined by the script, it's determined by you. So the better that you become at speaking and having good conversation, the better the script will translate into deals. Also, if you want to grow your real estate business, whether you are brand new or if you already have deals under your belt, DM me the word coach on Instagram at JustinYou'reWrong. See you the next one.